And on opening night of the festival this week, you had the entire staff, entire cast, artistic staff, employees of the festival, plus the original cast from
Indeed.
1962. And we've heard the names, but who are some of the unsung heroes of the
Oh, my
festival? I know there's
gosh.
too many to possibly
Yeah.
name, but who are some of the unsung heroes that typical patrons might not know about?
Right. Well, certainly it has to be, first of all, as a group, it has to be our volunteers. We have about 350 of them every year that serve as our greeters, as our hostesses and ushers. They do our mailings for us. They help by putting out brochures. They do all kinds of things for us. And of that group, I have to say Ann Judd, who is our volunteer coordinator. I remember years ago approaching Ann and asking her if she would serve as our volunteer coordinator, because we just got too big and it couldn't all be handled by our marketing department any longer. And we had a very small salary, but we said, Ann, we can't pay you a lot, but we'll pay you this amount of money. And we said, would you do it? And she said, no, I won't do it if you're going to pay me. I cannot ask people to volunteer for something that I'm being paid to do. And so for 22 years now, she has served as our volunteer coordinator and does a magnificent job of keeping all those schedules and all those people and all of their children and grandchildren and vacations and Little League tournaments and everything else in order, so we have it staffed every single day, every night, and every afternoon. And then I would have to say, as another entity, is Southern Utah University. We are housed on the campus of SUU, and while sometimes it's a royal pain to us to be on this campus, we also could not do what we do without their support. They provide invaluable infrastructure support in terms of just helping us with grounds and different things like that. And they have been staunch supporters from day one. Although we have to go around and say, turn your lights off in this classroom. No, turn those lights off so it doesn't shine in on the audience's eyes. But they've been a great supporter. Those are just some of the entities that make what we do possible.
Two other big years in the history of the festival were 1977 and
Yes.
1989. When the
Buildings and buildings.
Yeah, buildings were created. Having these new buildings and these facilities are still around today being built, how did that change the character of the festival?
Well, when the Adams Memorial Theater was built and finally completed in 1977, and it was built over a series of years, the Tiring House, or the stage, was completed in the summer of 1971. But then we still had temporary seats out front. We had folding chairs and things, because Fred only built what he had the money and could afford to build. He didn't want to go into debt. And so we went 2 years, and it was 1974, 74, so 3 years, before we were able to build the lower bowl, and we had these huge steel beams, because we knew that the balcony and the roof line had to go on, but we couldn't afford them yet. So we had the lower bowl, and they poured all the cement, and they put all the seats in, and we had these big beams going up with all these lights hanging on it. Then it was 1976 when we finally put the balcony on, and we completed the roof, and then we finally put the final electrical systems and the lighting systems in 1977. But it gave us a permanent home. No longer were we a temporary sort of summer, fix it, take down the set, put up the set. It made us legitimate, if you will, and it was tremendous, because it was the first sort of major capital campaign, I guess, that we ever underwent. And the original design cost for the building were going to be $18,000 to build it. And Fred had no idea where this money was going to come from. Then by the time we went to do construction, it was $329,000. Then it went to be $500,000, and by the time we got done, it was about $1 million to complete everything. Now, that's nothing in today's dollars, but at that time it was like, my goodness. But he raised all of that with private donations. And a similar thing happened in 1989, when we finally were at a point when we were selling out that building, and we were turning people away. We were playing to 99 and 100% capacity, and Fred never wanted to turn anybody away. So we would bring folding chairs in and put them down the aisles, and we would say, just stand right here, you'll love the show. I mean, we were probably breaking every fire code in the country, but he didn't want to turn anybody away. So we said, what if we built another theater? Would people come to see something besides Shakespeare? And it was a long process, and we did a big study with our audience. And finally, in 1987, we were able to raise the money, and we broke ground on the Randall Jones Theater. It took us 2 years to build it. And in June of 1989, it opened its doors. And we decided we were going to do what we called the Shakespeare of other lands. The Chekhovs, the Molières, the Ibsens, the Tennessee Williams, the Oscar Wildes. Well, we had a hard time getting people to come in the theater. They loved their Shakespeare out of doors, they loved the stars, they wanted to be out of doors, they wanted to go inside. And for the first 2 years, we took a royal bath financially. The first year we lost about $250,000 on the project. And we said, oh my goodness. So finally, after 2 years, we said, okay, if they like Shakespeare and they won't come to see what we're doing here, we'll do Shakespeare indoors, and we'll make them come and see this. We didn't know if they'd come or not. We did Taming of the Shrew in 1991. They came in the droves, they filled the house, and they went, wow, this is really a wonderful theater. This is beautiful. We like this. This is air-conditioned. But we had to trick them into coming. And that began the process of building the Randall audience and building a loyal following there. And so it's been a long process, but now it's been very successful for us. And now we're about to move into the next phase, we hope.
Yeah, and we talked with Brian Vaughn and David
Good.
about that.
Good.
Last question. You've had some nice stories you've told us, and I just wanted to ask you to reminisce a little bit more and tell some of your favorite memories the past 50 years. Maybe a memory that epitomizes everything that the Shakespeare Festival is. If I could put you on the spot for...
That's one memory that epitomizes the festival. Well, I mean, if I have to sort of put it into one, it really has to be the image of Fred Adams. And Fred Adams out in the courtyard, greeting the people. Fred Adams doing the orientation. Fred Adams planting the plants in the planters, picking up the trash on the lawn, hanging the lights in the trees, doing whatever it takes to make sure that the patrons have a joyous experience here. And I think that love and that passion that he has for what he does has translated to me, certainly, and to most of the staff here. And I think, in some ways, to most of our patrons. It's almost like there's this sort of grand reunion that happens every season when they come back, and you see people and they go, hi, so good to see you again. And that's how people respond. There's been hundreds of productions done over the past 50 years, and many of them 5 and 6 times, because Shakespeare, bless his heart, only wrote 37. Why he didn't write 137, I don't know what he was thinking of. But it's hard to pinpoint, a particular production. I do remember a production that we did in 1991 of Death of a Salesman, and it was in the Randall Jones Theater, and an actor by the name of Bill Leach was playing Willie Loman, and it was a magnificent production. It was one of those kind of shows that just hit on every single level in terms of set design, performance, lighting, and it was a huge critical success for us. And people were coming from San Diego and San Francisco. I remember talking to a couple the second to last night of the show. This was in late August, early September, and they said, we drove all the way from San Diego to be here tonight because everyone said we had to see this production of Death of a Salesman. And it's those kind of critical moments that have defined the festival, and I hope will for the next 50 years.
Great. Well, thank you for discussing your memories with us.
And my pleasure. My goodness. I just hope everybody comes down to see what we're talking about. If you haven't been, tell them to come on down.
Yep. We'd love to encourage our readers to come down.
Thank you.